In the demon tower, a man burning with green flame said that anyone who entered the floor would never leave. The player asked who the man was, an NPC or a player. He launched an attack and said that both options were wrong and that no answer would help him. The player activated the immortal body. The opponent swung his weapon at the guy. The sword was already next to his face. The weapon passed him by. The player stabbed his two-handed sword into the ground. The opponent looked at the boy. He realized that it was a divine talent and stopped. The player asked him why he stopped, and he explained that the player could think he had passed the test. He thought the fight would not be interesting, but he asked him to swear that he would not tell anyone and let him go. In addition, he was ready to tell the secret of the apocalypse. The player was interested. The man put his hand on the shoulder of the Khan brother. He told him that a deadly catastrophe would soon occur, but that it could be avoided. The man did not explain what to do, saying that he would have to find out the rest on his own, and said goodbye. The player asked how to get out. The man replied that he would be able to get out in 7 days, when the tower would open. The man slowly disappeared into the thicket. The player suspected that the disaster might have something to do with the fact that the man stopped when he saw the divine talent. But he also questioned his words. Monstrous armored cars were lurking in the skyscrapers. Zhang said with a smile that everyone was able to have a good rest, but he asked the team to push themselves. Duan was on the alert. They entered the city of origins. Hang gliders were flying in the gray sky. Players who died here did not lose the chance to be revived or equipped. They only lost 20% of the crystals they managed to get there. The event lasted for 4 hours, and the best guild would be judged by the number of crystals collected. The crystals had a fixed position and were often guarded by bosses. The team was assembled. Zhang suggested discussing strategy. He realized that they were outnumbered, so they had to split up to capture more points. And if someone attacked a point, they could defend it together. Zhang boldly gave the start command. Everyone immediately split up and ran in different directions from Zhang. Han Yuru used her staff. Xiao Yao used her skill. Qin and Duan also fought with dignity. The mechanical boss's head flew off thanks to Zhang. The team had captured the 3rd-level water crystal mine. The mechanical dog was no longer guarding the crystal mine. The system issued a guild ranking. The first were the despicable heroes, 20 of them, and 10,600 crystals. The second were the god hunters, 5 of them, and 5,000 crystals. The third was the Gate of Promises, 10 in number and 4,600 crystals. Zhang realized that he would have to take over other people's mines to get a higher level. Han Yuru was guarding the mine. There were 5 members of the 3rd-rank Promise Gate Guild on the horizon. Xiao's leader, Fei Ming, noticed that the Hunters Guild was small, and each mine was weakly defended. Zhao decided that they could easily take their mines if they attacked at the same time. So they launched an attack. Where they came, there was no room for outsiders. They used the call of the roots. Roots began to seep out of the ground, embracing Han's body and immobilizing her arms. She was confused, asking them to let her go until her friends came to help them. Zhao laughed at her confidence. They decided to kill her. Han wriggled out of the roots in all directions. Zhao fought another boss, swinging his weapon. He saw a danger alert. Zhang realized that Han was under attack. There was a boss behind him. He started attacking from behind. Zhang felt something happening behind him. The monster spat flames at him. Zhang used the golden boots. He left Xiao Hei the dragon in charge. He ran to help. His boots helped him increase his speed by 100%. Zhang mentally reassured Han that he would be there soon. The guild leader Zhao held a knife to Han's frightened neck and said how sorry he was to have to hurt such a beautiful woman. He mocked that her friends hadn't shown up yet. Zhao turned around. He ordered all his teammates to hold Zhang, who had come running to help. They immediately flew away from Zhang's speed. He stood in front of Zhao. They exchanged claims with each other. Roots began to grow out of the ground. Zhao intimidated the player and asked him to prepare for death. Zhang cut the roots. Zhao was scared, and Zhang ran up to him and said that the leader was destined to die by his sword. Zhang finished his job and killed Zhao Fei Ming's player, for which he received 500 crystals. He put down his weapon and approached Han. He asked how she was feeling, and she thanked Zhang. Someone nearby clapped their hands at this romantic story with a hero and a princess. The unknown person knew Han and greeted her. It was Shi Tu-yang, the leader of the Despicable Heroes Guild. He asked Zhang to move away from Han. The girl called Shi Tu-yang a bastard and said that he constantly picked on her in real life. Zhang took Han's hand. They walked away, and afterwards Shi Tu-yang offered a duel, where the reward would be 10 mines from the level. And if the Hunters Guild lost, he wanted to take Han for himself. Zhang asked him to disappear from the eyes of the narcissist Shi. He immediately used the tenfold speed talent after the refusal. This talent increased attack speed by 1,000% in 1 minute. Zhang backed Han away from the attack. Zhang attacked Xie Tu-yin and promised to deal with his guild after him. She promised that Zhang would not leave alive. Swords flew in Zhang's direction. He did not have time to fight back. His weapon flew out of his hand. Zhang could not dodge. Shi Tu-yang pierced Zhang with his sword. With a satisfied face, she said that Zhang was no match for the legendary talent. Tears appeared in Han Yuru's eyes. A blue stream of energy appeared around Zhang. He was ready to disappoint Shi with his slightly better divine talent. There were explosions in the city from sword strikes. Zhang held his sword with a smile and took it out of his chest. Shi Tu-yang was stunned that he had managed to avoid being struck. Zhang wondered what that player without legendary talent could do. The sword sliced through the air again. Zhang didn't die from the blow. Su was already going a little crazy from the misunderstanding. He stepped away and started shouting for help. Suddenly, someone landed. It was Su's teammates, who asked them to take down the player. Zhang laughed at this duel. Su had been planning an ambush from the beginning. Tu-yang got angry and threatened the player with death. Su's guild prepared to attack. Zhang thought it was a good chance to earn crystals. The guild attacked Zhang. He laughed awkwardly and asked them to continue. They were frightened to see him blocking all the attacks, as if Zhang's body was absorbing the damage. It was time for his attack. He used the Hell Dragon Flame skill to blow fire at the opponents. Shi's health immediately dropped to a critical level. His guildmates died. Shi Tu-yang died after them, and he managed to tell Zhang that he would not give him the mines, despite the fact that he had killed him. She continued to say that victory could only be theirs, but his long speech ended with a punch to the face, which had already killed Shi. Player Zhang Yi killed Shi's player Tu-yang and received 1,000 crystals. He knew that she would not keep his promise. Suddenly, an alarmed Xiao ran quickly to Zhang. The whole guild ran over, and Han explained that they were under attack from the Gate of Promise and the Despicable Heroes, but Zhang had protected her. The Hunters Guild was sitting under the mine. The first guild already had 25,000 crystals, they had 15,000, and the third guild had 7. Zhang warned that there was half an hour left, and the only way to take first place was to steal the mines using ranged attacks. The archer Qin could help with this. Han told him that he was good at it. He picked up his bow, bowed his head, and apologized. He thought he wouldn't be able to do it. He was tormented by doubts. Qin long thought back to the past. After a bad time, he practiced, reassuring himself that it was nerves. He was nervous and hoped he could live up to expectations. But his arrow missed the bullseye. He listened to people tell him what a failure he was. He sat in the corner listening to all the criticism and humiliating insults. Qin was thinking that the bow was none of his business. Zhang put his hand on his shoulder. The competition continued in the city. Zhang supported Qin, reminding him that it was he who had saved him in the donji. Then he got right into the eye of the dragon, so it would not be difficult for him to deal with those underdogs. This support helped Qin, so he agreed with a twinkle in his eye. The girls rejoiced. Qin Long stood on the roof of the building. He was holding a bow and stringing an arrow. The target was the enemy guild. He focused on Shi Tu-yen. Qin launched the arrow. The archer used the golden aria. The arrow flew to the target. Shi Tu-yen was chatting with the timemates about Han Yiru, who assured him that she would soon realize his awesomeness. The arrow was headed for the guild leader. It hit the body of Shi, who was unhappy with the repeated attack. Qin said with a smile that his job was done, now it was up to the others. The Hunters Guild took over the new mines. They were still in second place in the rankings, but they were closer. Zhang said it was time to hunt. He started a fight and got crystals. Qin aimed at the other players. There were 50 seconds left. The difference between the two guilds was getting smaller and smaller. Qin's arrow flew. There were 35 seconds left. The difference between the guilds was 1,500 crystals. 12 seconds remained. Qin's arrow attacked the players. They had archers' arrows in their grunts. The guild war was over. The Guild of God Hunters won. They became the champions of the City of Origins, with a difference of 500 crystals. The team praised Qin, calling him the best archer. Behind them was the losing guild. Shi Tu-yen thought only that he had fallen in Han's eyes. The award for the champions was lowered from the hang glider. There were interesting items inside. Zhang took the teleporter and rejoiced. Shi Tu-yen was passing by and warned Zhang that he had long been followed by a race of others, and said that he could forget about a quiet life. Zhang watched them go. Han Yiru asked him who the race of others was. He wasn't sure, but he thought it was related to the people who had attacked them in the Danja. The moonlight was shining in the city. Zhang walked along with his team. A little girl in a robe was hiding around the corner. She quickly passed and nudged Han. A small hand reached into Han's pockets. The little girl used the sneaky stealing skill of the assassin, which gave a high chance of stealing an item from the player's inventory. She was smiling as she stole the zombie's golden ring. Qin shouted at the girl to be more careful. Han looked at her inventory and saw that her ring had been stolen. The girl was already running away. Zhang sneezed after her. She stood waiting. When the boys came running, the girl had already disappeared. Zhang didn't have time to grab her. He suspected that she had teleported to the Moonlight City. Qin asked if it was a city of another race. The leader confirmed and offered to check it out. Zhang wanted to do this not only to improve his race's talent by gaining the camp's prestige through the new city, but also to learn something about Mu Qin. Zhang asked everyone to stay behind in case Brother Han showed up while he went to the city. Qin promised to protect Han. Zhang set the coordinates of the teleportation. He requested a teleport to the City of Moonlight. For 100 gold coins, Zhang teleported to the city. He was not happy about this tax. The player turned to the call for help and felt the danger in the city. Inside was a girl with a toy. Two big men were coming at her with knives. One of them pointed a sword at her and said that she was running fast. The girl turned away in fright, covering her head. The sword was stopped. Zhang came to the rescue. They asked him if he realized who he was dealing with. But Zhang said that girls should not be hurt. He attacked the robber. They retreated when they realized that Zhang was too strong. The robbers ran away, their heels ringing. Zhang asked why they attacked. Di Wu said that she had stolen items, so they had been chasing her for a long time. Zhang asked who they were. She explained that they were from the Gods Guild and were feared by everyone in Moonlight City. Zhang assured her that the people from the Danju were also from that guild. He left and advised the girl not to stay there. The player turned around and saw her following him. Dee was scared and didn't know what to do. He waved her away. Dee promised that she would stay out of the way and help in the city. They went to the hotel and asked for 2 rooms. Zhang and the girl went to their rooms. The player collapsed on the bed. At night, The door opened. Zhang was sleeping sweetly. Di was standing over him. She was going to kill Zhang and take the 10,000 coins. Diwu took a swing at Zhang with a knife. But she missed because he had rolled over to the other side of the bed. She was furious. Suddenly, Zhang hit Di in her sleep, saying what a bastard Muchen was. She cringed in pain after being hit in the face. Zhang did not understand what she was doing in his room. Di lied about dreaming about bad people. He touched her arm and suggested that she sleep while he guarded her. The girl lay down, and Zhang realized that she was hiding something. The boy was behind them. The two reached the Moonlight Church, where the Guild of Gods was located. Diwu said that she had been following them, and saw them disappear near the church. The guy behind them thought the girl looked good. He reached out to touch her, but Zhang grabbed him. It was Muchen. He was frightened, not realizing how he knew him. Zhang got angry in a moment and hit Muchen. Muchen flew away. He smashed the counter. There were people standing on the street who were surprised that Muchen was getting his ass kicked, even though it was usually the other way around. Muchen was furious. The girl had warned him that he was dangerous, but Zhang was serious. He didn't care how dangerous he was. Zhang had thought about betraying his friend in his past life, and in this life he chose to abuse the weak. Muchen used the skill of concealment. The traitor threatened him with death. Muchen disappeared because of his talent. Assassin's concealment made the player invisible, hid their scent, and allowed them to deal critical damage from the blind spot. Zhang was careful. He dodged the sword but got a cut on his face. In his past life, Mu had also relied on this skill. Zhang could not forget that moment. Muchen was approaching him. But Zhang got his revenge this time. He deflected Mu's shot. The player didn't understand how Zhang saw where to kick. Zhang kicked Muchen in the head. He flew away. The player held his sword over the chest of the traitor, who could not understand who was standing in front of him. Muchen thought he had come across a madman. Zhang sent him to hell. Behind Muchen, a man in a cloak appeared from the ground and grabbed him. The unknown man escaped, kidnapping the traitor. Zhang was not going to give him his target. He went in search of him with Diwu. They reached the Moonlight Church, where their trail broke off. The girl warned him that it could be an ambush. But Zhang was determined to go. She handed him a sleeping pill just in case. Zhang asked where she got it from. She said it was a necessity when traveling alone. Diwu put her finger to her lips and asked him to be quiet. Zhang grabbed the two guards with both hands, into whom he had slipped the sleeping pills. There were different people in the church. There was a strange cut in the wall. It was a secret room in the church. Muchen was there, and he did not understand what this place was. The unknown person mocked that Mu was beaten by a weirdo. Muchen asked who he was and what he wanted from him. The unidentified guy in the suit said that now he didn't ask questions, but only kept quiet and did what he was told. Two guards were leaving to replace the others. They were completely covered in a suit. They were only too happy to change because they were tired. The two watched the guards go. One of them suddenly remembered that it was not yet time to change. But the sleeping pills sprayed by the girl in the suit worked faster. They fell asleep, and the girl showed Zhang the way. They took off their masks and went in search of Muchen. Zhang turned around. Diwu took off her costume and said that her mission was complete. The two guards gave her a bag of reward. She also added that in this city, deceiving others was a normal thing to do. Zhang realized that her goal was not to steal the ring. He wondered who was behind the plan. Torches were burning purple on the walls, and silhouettes could be seen at the end of the corridor. The big man said that it was a waste for the boss to call a whole crowd for one little punk. His henchmen did not agree that the boss was wrong, but gave him a chance to go and deal with him one-on-one. Kachik was overconfident. He prepared to attack and pulled out a weapon from behind his back. He threw a stick at Zhang. He dodged and it hit the wall, but Kachuk was strong. The player used the skill to summon a flock of crows. They flew away to distract the opponent. The number of birds doubled after he improved the skill. Despite the crows, the man attacked Zhang and said that this was too pathetic a skill to win. He continued a series of attacks with his stick. Zhang took out his sword and slashed it across the floor. When the swing landed, he slipped. His axe fell with him and hit him in the head. He became dizzy. Zhang mocked his opponent, who was angry about it. The other two decided to go to the aid of the weak duck. They went to help their ally by tying Zhang up. One of them raised a wall of bone spikes. They pulled him right up against that wall. Zhang called out to Xiao He. The dragon flew to the rescue. The opponent wondered how an ordinary patron could have such a strong beast. The dragon burned the cloths that held Zhang. They underestimated their victim. The cloths tore. Zhang got up and stabbed one of them with his sword. Then he explained to the man on the ground that it was simply that he was stronger than him. Zhang was surprised that the dragon had grown to the first rank. The opponents discussed a plan of action and decided to just give it their all. The trio started attacking Zhang. He decided to use the immortal body skill. Kachuk was shocked. Zhang and Xiao He were attacking their opponents. Zhang was furious. The dragon set fire to their feet. The duck's axe flew away. They fell down without strength. A man approached the three. The duck called him boss. He let the three go. The duck tried to convince them that they needed a little more time, but the boss angrily said that they had had enough. They stood up and said goodbye to Zhang. The boss was happy to see Zhang again. He knew that this player was not the first time here. Zhang was shocked, but lied and said he didn't know what he was talking about. The boss was talking about the dragon egg he found in the secret dungeon at the very beginning of the game. Zhang translated the conversation for Mu Chen. The boss offered him a deal. Zhang would work for him, get the best equipment and wealth, and no one would know about his reincarnation. And if he refused, he would not live. Behind the boss were two strong dragons. Zhang hated people like him, who conquered all these beauties through the suffering of innocent people. In this case, he refused. The boss sent the dragons at the player. Zhang realized that he was in a losing situation. He took the cube for teleportation. No wonder he set the coordinates in the City of Dawn. The teleportation worked, and he was transported. The boss was left alone. Next time, he wasn't going to let him go so easily. The boss came back and made it clear that he wanted him dead because he had crossed him. Mu Chen was shocked. The boss explained that he would not get away with it. Mu Chen became desperate and panicked. The boss sat down with him and explained that Zhang would really kill him, so he had to do it first. He promised to help Mu. Everyone in the apocalypse was supposed to belong to him, and Zhang refused, so he only wanted him dead. Zhang successfully teleported. He wondered who that guy was. He suspected that he was the same reincarnator. His soul told him that the player's stamina was at a minimum. He decided to hurry to the tavern so that Han and the others wouldn't worry about his long absence. Zhang used the fast recovery service. The bartender was surprised that he was spending money so thoughtlessly. Zhang also wanted to improve his equipment. Han Yuru and Xiao Ye were sitting in a cafe, worried about their leader's long absence. Zhang suddenly appeared behind them and reassured them. The girls were overjoyed. Zhang told them that they hadn't been able to get the ring, but that it wasn't as important to her as the fact that the leader was safe. Xiao asked where Qin was, and Zhang said that he had asked him to gather some information about the thief. Someone was stomping around the hall. Qin came in with bad news. Ms. Han's stolen ring was going to be auctioned off. Zhang realized that the thief would also be at the auction, and in addition, he would be able to find better equipment. The guild gathered to go to the auction. The host was welcoming the players to the monthly auction from the stage. Zhang scratched the back of his head awkwardly and explained to Han that he would take care of some things first and come right back. Han went to the auction, and he headed for the secret shop. Even in his past life, only a few people knew about it. His memory did not fail him. He found himself in a store with a wonderful saleswoman. She asked him what he was looking for. Zhang asked for 800 nights without a discount and a set of pancakes with fruit. He felt ashamed of himself. She opened a secret menu for Zhang. It cost him 1,000 coins. The potions in these shops were worth the price. Zhang held a jar in his hand and said that he would take all of them. The shopkeeper praised his choice. It was the pride of their store. Zhang was desperate because he had spent 4,000 coins. Zhang returned to the auction hall. It was suspiciously quiet. The auctioneer was selling a sheepskin scroll for 100 coins. If no one bid, they would just let the item pass. Everyone was asking to skip this garbage as soon as possible. Zhang approached Han. He hoped that the ring was not there yet. The scroll was skipped. But Zhang remembered that it could be a scroll from a secret mission. He raised his hand to bet. Someone laughed at his bet for toilet paper. But for a player of the dragon race, it was a precious thing. He got his scroll. The next lot was a ring. The starting price was 1,000 gold coins. Someone shouted that it was too much. Han and Zhang discussed the man in front of them, who didn't understand why someone was selling it. Zhang said that this bald man was from the main city of the beast race, the city of extraordinary ice. He thought about his motives, and who was standing next to Shi Tu Yin. Han marveled at his knowledge. He smiled and said that he had just read about each race when he chose the camp. The man next to Shi placed a bet and doubled it. The people around them were upset and surprised at the rich man. People started making noise about what the animal race had forgotten in the human territory. The man came up and hit the loudest one. The others were afraid. The guy said that he could only swing his fists. Zhang went up to him and told Si that the ring would be his. Shi Tu Yang explained to Shui for Zhang. He asked to put Zhang in his place. Shui was overconfident. Meanwhile, Zhang asked Duan and Qin to make some noise to buy time. They happily agreed. Qin and Duan poured oil on the fire of the angry crowd, who did not want to see the beasts in human territory. The rally against the animals continued. The auction was suspended. A fight broke out between the humans and the animals. Meanwhile, Zhang took the invisibility potion, which lasted 3 minutes. He drank the potion. He also took the smoke and fire potions. Zhang threw the 2 jars into the crowd. The battle only got worse. The assistant presenter was holding a box with a ring in her hands. Zhang was approaching the ring. He had already stretched out his hand toward it. Zhang stood behind Shi Tu and Shui. He used the potion to attack Shui. In a moment, he was already lying on the floor with his head. She ran over to him to help. Shui was furious and holding his head. Zhang attacked Shi Tu Yang. He landed on top of Shui. They were lying on the floor in confusion. There were 10 seconds left in the game, so Zhang decided to leave. The player used the golden speed skill and ran out of the building. Duan and Qin continued to beat up Shui. He asked them not to step on him, and Xia tearfully begged them not to hit him because he was a human. The effect of the invisibility potion wore off. Zhang wrote in the guild chat that the mission was over and suggested meeting in the alley next to the auction. The team met up, and Han expressed his excitement. He held out his hand with the ring. But there was a problem. The ring was sealed to prevent theft. It would return to the seller's inventory in a couple of minutes. They thought the whole mission was a failure. But Zhang said it wasn't. He planned to find the thief with the help of the seal. Zhang suggested teleporting. Everyone was impressed by Zhang's thoughtfulness. He told the embarrassed Han that he would definitely return the ring to her. Zhang teleported away. He was looking for the thief. Time passed. It was returned to the girl in the robe. Zhang teleported to her. He suspected her of the crime. and she was surprised that Zhang could escape from the Guild of Gods. She made faces at the player. They started running. He grabbed her by a piece of her dress as she jumped up. They looked into each other's eyes. Suddenly, an axe started flying. It was Shui, who had tracked down Zhang, who had completely forgotten that the beast race had the ability to track. They could sense auras from kilometers away. Shui was happy to see the two together, because he wanted to kill them both. They jumped off the roof. She started acting like an angel in need of salvation again. He was furious at this behavior. Shui used a beastly leap and ran after the couple. Shui stood in front of Zhang. Diwu had already disappeared from his sight. Zhang was attacked by Shui's skill and lost 800 health. He was quite hurt, and his defense was insufficient. They were standing on different buildings. Shui asked Zhang to give him Diwu, and in return, he would let him go. Zhang dodged the attacks and explained that he had no friendship with the kid. Shui shouted that he had seen the opposite. He could smell the girl scent on Zhang, and was only glad that they were standing next to each other. Shui was already imagining strange scenarios for the two of them. Zhang realized that there was no point in proving anything to him. He picked up his sword. The player moved toward Shui. He was driven by that stubbornness, so he attacked Shui. The opponent took fire damage. Shui lost 300 health points from the crackling flames, but he laughed at such a small amount of damage. Zhang jumped away from Shui. The opponent threatened to show the player the difference between them. He raised the flames. Shui Wan used the same skill, but the damage kept increasing. He explained to Zhang that the less health he had, the more damage he could do to him. The player dodged and drank health potions. Shui missed his shot. Zhang regained his health, mocking Shui's low stamina. The opponent was shocked that Zhang had recovered. Behind her, the girl was thinking that the potion would be useless if Shui used one trick. Wuhan was furious. He used the legendary talent Bloodthirsty Rage. It increased the lesson by 100%, and attacks restored health. The talent lasted for 1 minute. He launched an attack, thereby increasing his health. Zhang was in a bad situation. He stuck away from Shui. He was regaining health, not expecting such an effective talent. Shui did not stop. Zhang stood at the end of the roof. He wondered if Shui really thought that his bloodthirsty rage was invincible. Shui was sure of victory. Zhang ran to meet him. He drank the potion. Shui shouted about the player's imminent death. Zhang Yi was stabbed in the chest with a weapon. Zhang grabbed the axe and held it to his chest. Shui thought the player had gone mad. Zhang smiled and said let him suck blood if he likes it so much. The guild members rejoiced at the return of the commander. Han was happy to see that Zhang had returned her ring. The leader said that it was time for them to level up to keep up. Duan was, as always, only too happy to do so. While Duan Feng was showing off his muscles in front of Han and Xiao, Zhang was thinking about divine luck followed by great risks. As soon as the secret of the ring was revealed, he and Han would become prey for the players. Therefore, they had to increase their strength. After some time, Zhang stood next to the killed boss. The spirit reported that the player had leveled up to the 50th. He was able to advance the profession to the 2nd rank. The guild was walking down the Dawn Street. Xiao asked Zhang what they would do next. He replied that they needed to break through the maximum level. Zhang was thinking about completing the task for the profession and improving his skills, which were still not enough. The guild reached the test hall. Other players were unsuccessfully trying to pass the 2nd test. Many in the crowd thought it was too difficult. A player who was eliminated after an unsuccessful test was lying on the floor. To pass the assessment, you had to accumulate 20,000 points. For this, 100 gold coins had to be paid. A girl in a pink suit with a pink sledgehammer was waiting for the next player. In the testing room of Dawn City, a girl in a pink suit was waiting for the next player. Zhang volunteered to try his hand. She had already begun to twist her sledgehammer in all directions, and Zhang was saying that victory depended not only on strength, but also on skills. She interrupted him by pointing to a flying device in the sky. It was a scoring robot. One of the features of this mission was that you could unlock a maximum level of 70, gain new skills, and the ability to improve your specialization. Zhang started the challenge by using golden speed. The officer explained that a frontal attack was not the best level. She missed with her sledgehammer because of Zhang's high speed. He said he was not stupid to use melee without being sure of victory. He used a series of lightning attacks. The officer was hit and dropped the sledgehammer. The robot awarded him 2,000 points. Zhang was happy with this success. The crowd of players marveled at his speed of replenishing points. The officer accepted the fact that she had underestimated Zhang. She used the void hammer attack. The audience was surprised by this transformation of the hammer. Zhang was hit by the attack, so he lost 2,000 points. The guild was worried about the commander. Xiao asked if Han thought Zhang would pass the test. She believed he would win. Han recalled the dangerous situations that Zhang had come out of. Meanwhile, in the auditorium, Zhang got up after being hit. He used the attack of the crows and assured the officer that she would not be successful in this battle again. Zhang recalled his past life, where he had lost to the officer 200 times. But now, he had gained a lot of combat experience. Zhang used double vision, which allowed him to share his vision with his beasts. He ran closer to his opponent. Zhang dodged the attack, thanks to his skill, and got 1,000 points. The officer did not understand how he had predicted her attack. The next blows also missed Zhang. He prepared to attack. Thanks to his double vision, he could score 20,000 just by doing that. The officer looked at the birds and realized it was them. She threw the void storm hammer into the sky. Zhang saw through the eyes of the birds that the attack was on them. Now, he could not rely on dodging attacks. Zhang used the dragon's hellfire and lightning purgatory. In the flurry of attacks, he scored a large number of points. Zhang stood next to the defeated officer. He had received the achievement of the Great Patron of Beasts for passing the second-ranked trial. Zhang managed to score 22,000 points. The crowd was shocked, and the guild rejoiced. Meanwhile, training was underway in the Moon Castle. Mu Chen was improving his skills. They were going to get the best equipment among the players, so that they wouldn't lose to Zhang Yi anymore. There was a training session in the Moon Castle. Everyone went up to the chairman, who said there was new equipment for everyone. He appointed Mu Chen as the commander of the operation. The players were ready to go. The chairman handed Mu Chen a scroll, but warned him to use it wisely, because it would only work once. The players gathered and were ready to go to the City of Dawn. The chairman was petting his dragons and thought that Zhang had become his enemy in vain. There was a celebration in the City of Dawn. The guild came out of a kebab shop where they had a delicious meal. Zhang scheduled training for the second-ranked trial for the next Lin. Xiao was excited about this news. Qin Long patted Zhang on the shoulder and quietly asked him to show him his new skills sometime. He agreed to show them when they were in the dungeon. He had acquired so many skills that he did not have time to deal with them all. One of them was demonic substitution, which removed all control effects and left a demon doll at the place where the skill was used. Once it was attacked, everyone around it would panic for 3 seconds. Zhang liked this idea. Players approached the guild. It was Mu Chen's team. He didn't understand what Mu Chen was doing with the Divine Guild players. Zhang laughed at him. But Mu Chen threatened him. He ordered his own to block other guild players, and he wanted to take Zhang Yi into his own hands. He volunteered to fight Duan alone. He was only happy to fight. They started running towards each other. Duan surprised his opponent with a swift sword. Suddenly he let go of the ladder and climbed up the building. The other player decided to attack Xiao and swallowed her into a strange cloud. Han wanted to help, but Qin warned that it could be an ambush. Zhang jerked to help, but his legs were blocked. Shadow slavery was used against him, creating a black shadow under his feet, leaving him unable to move for 10 seconds. Mu Chen used this moment and rushed to attack Zhang. He was already behind Zhang, his sword flying to strike him. But Mu Chen struck the doll, because Zhang used a demonic substitution, reminding him that he could no longer attack him in the back. Zhang prepared to use a series of lightning bolts. He struck Mu Chen. But it didn't work, he blocked the attack. His shield was strong. Mu Chen attacked Zhang using the new skill Star Purgatory. Suddenly Xiao He appeared. The dragon repelled the opponent's attack. Zhang thanked his beast and ordered him to attack with the storm wing. Xiao He was flying at Mu Chen. He was frightened and tried to defend himself. But a second-level dragon was flying against him. Mu Chen was still a first-ranked assassin, so Zhang was no match for him. Xiao He's claws were approaching his opponent. The dragon grabbed him in its paws. Zhang said that he would always be better than him. Mu Chen was angry that Carlo had not warned him that Zhang had already completed the second-level test. He mentioned the scroll. Mu Chen took it and told Zhang not to get too excited. Suddenly, he was no longer in Zhao's clutches. Another dragon appeared and bit Xiao He. He was bleeding to death. Mu Chen's dragon was strong. It had gained confidence after using the scroll. Zhang ran over to his beast. Meanwhile, Xiao Yao was in the hands of the Divine Guild. Han used hail against the opponents. The skeleton was ready for her attack. He put up a bone block, so Han's hail did not touch them. Qin decided to take matters into his own hands. He aimed his arrows using the skill Victory Light. Qin smashed the enemy guild's block. Xiao Yao managed to get out of the shadows. The enemy used the Spring Darkness. Xiao managed to run unharmed to the teammates. Duan continued to fight while Han hugged Xiao. Duan's opponent used a full-body bandaging attack. His tapes covered Duan's entire body. But he immediately got out of this trap. Duan's sword flew at his opponent, who tried to cover himself with his hands. Duan was putting his weapon down while his opponent was cut by his 3 swords. The guild was left with 3 opponents. But the Divine Guild was not disappointed with the loss of Bent, whom they had sacrificed. Their plan had already been fulfilled. Xiao He had been overthrown. Zhang Yi was in trouble. Han realized that they only needed Zhang. He was on Xiao and flying away from the Emperor's dragon. Zhang asked Xiao He to attack. They turned around. Zhang shouted that today he would put an end to old and new grievances. Xiao He confidently flew straight into the Dragon Emperor's fiery breath. Mu Chen looked at this unfortunate suicide with a smile. The immortal body might have protected Zhang, but not his dragon. The player took fire damage to the dragon. Then he took damage for activating the Soul Link skill. It transferred all the damage of the beast to the patron. With an immortal body and soul linked, they both became immortal. Zhang ordered to attack the right wing, because it was the vulnerable part of the dragon, which would lose its ability to fly after the attack. His wing was cut off. The Dragon Emperor was attacked by Xiao He's claws, and suffered minus 1,500 health points. Mu Chen's protective suit cracked. Zhang did not understand the reason for such a small amount of damage from the Dragon Emperor. He suspected that it was not a real dragon, but a contracted illusion. This contract allowed you to summon a phantom that would fight on behalf of a real monster, and the stronger the summoned monster, the higher the price. Something strange was happening to Mu Chen's body. His hands were turning black. Zhang landed on the ground. The effect of the immortal body was over. He realized that Mu Chen was just Carlo's bait for him. Zhang stood behind Mu and talked about the side effects due to using the scroll. He didn't believe that Carlo could have lied to him. Mu Chen's body was changing rapidly. Zhang said that the price for using the contract was the aging of his body. He was just Carlo's pawn. Mu Chen was not going to die alone, so he wanted to take Zhang with him. He gave all his strength to the Dragon Emperor. Mu merged with the illusion. He wanted to destroy Zhang and the entire city. Mu Chen used purgatory lava. He became part of a dragon that let the flames burn through the city. People ran away from the fire. Mu killed everyone who got in his way. Zhang was hiding from the flames, thinking what a bastard Mu was. He flew on a dragon after Zhang and said that it didn't matter that he was reborn, he would still kill him again. The Dragon Emperor captured Zhang, who completely lost his mind. Zhang jumped out of the beast's clutches. The scroll was lying nearby, and it had to be destroyed to break the connection between body and illusion. Zhang went on the attack, asking Xiao He to cover him. He swung his sword and cut the scroll. The phantom disappeared along with Mu Qin, who shouted that he did not want to lose. Zhang ran to the fallen Xiao He. The guild ran through the destroyed city. Han ran up to Zhang to see if he was okay. They were next to Xiao He, who had almost sacrificed his life for Zhang. He was determined to find a way to save the beast. And as for Carlo, who had planned it all, Zhang was determined to make him pay for everything at any cost. Zhang was running around the outskirts of Dawn City in the Tsushui forest. Han was also there, but she didn't understand why he was there so early. Zhang remembered the revival potion. Xiao He was in a critical condition, so an ordinary life potion would not help. Xiao He was in a state of weakness. He could not be summoned by a master at this time, due to his fatal injuries. For the potion, he had to find a special apothecary, Leia, and complete a series of quests to prepare it. Zhang found Leia in the forest, gathering plants. In his past life, he had asked for her help. Back then, he had collected all the necessary materials, so Leia gave him the potion. In this life, he also had to ask her for help. Leia returned to Zhang. He urgently asked for a task for the potion. Leia did not understand how he knew. Zhang said it didn't matter, because he had to save Xiao He. He asked for the diary. Leia took it out and began to tell him about it. Zhang snatched the diary and continued that it held the keys to 3 valuable materials that were needed for the preparation. Leia was surprised that Zhang knew what she was about to say. Zhang thanked her, having already set off on the mission to create the revival potion. The additional quest stated that the life essence was in the Demon Tower, and the Dream Flower was in the extremely icy city. Leia said it would take 10 days to half a month to complete, but Zhang confidently said he would be back in a few minutes. Han spied on him. She understood his motives, but she didn't understand how Zhang knew about the existing quest. She hid behind a tree and decided to help the other 2 materials. The Demon City Tower opened in 1 second. Zhang flew through the crowd waiting for the opening. He pounded on the tower door. The gate opened, and a monster stood in the passageway, wondering who had decided to disturb him. Zhang immediately overthrew the monster. He demanded that it show him the portal to the next floor. The monster stood up and began to attack Zhang. The player just wanted to test the demonic substitution skill. The demon warrior did not stop. Zhang used Soul Search. The skill summoned an omniscient demon to check the enemy's weaknesses. Fragments of his human life appeared until he was recruited. The content was out of bounds, so the Soul Search was terminated. Zhang was surprised that the warrior was also human. Zhang went on, the monster fainted. He found himself in front of 2 portals of different colors. Usually there was only one blue one. Zhang decided to check the red portal. There was a movement. The Apocalypse Master was watching Zhang as he broke into the 30th floor of the Demon Tower. The man with the glasses was happy that he was finally coming to him. He pressed the red button, and the data exchange began. The boss changed his appearance and was ready to play with Zhang Yi. The data transfer was successfully completed. The 30th floor of the Demon Tower. Zhang walked through the desert toward the building. He didn't expect the red portal to lead him to the 30th floor. The essence was on top of the building on the spire. Zhang had to get it. A purple light was coming from the gate of the building. It was the pressure that broke the door open. A level 60 fallen seraphim angel came out. He attacked Zhang with his power. Zhang jumped up and dodged the strong attacks. Brother Han was lying in the desert. He was awakened by a pebble falling on his face. Ba Huang stood up, not realizing what was happening. He had just been on the 8th floor. He turned around and saw Zhang Yi fighting with seraphim. Ba Huang did not understand what was happening. He was worried about Zhang, who had rushed to the 30th floor immediately after the test. Bones and skulls were flying everywhere. Zhang was not strong enough to fight seraphim. Those bones were left over from the time when Seraphim had massacred the city of Dawn. Zhang stopped and thought he had found a way to win. He picked up the skull. A seal appeared on the ground. Zhang was giving them a chance for revenge. Angel was shocked to see what was happening. Zhang used the talent of summoning spirits. The skeletons appeared. They were coming to surround Seraphim. The crowd of dead were reaching for Seraphim. While they were distracting the angel, Zhang jumped to the essence. She realized his goal, so she was ready to thwart him. Seraphim raised her hand up and crystallized a spell that would strike the realm of thunder. It caused a storm for 10 minutes. The angel fought off the bone avengers. And after they were gone, she decided to deal with Zhang. He saw her. Zhang was in a hurry to get the essence, but Seraphim was not going to give it away. She swung her sword at the player. But suddenly her wing was cut. Seraphim was confused. It was Ba Huang. The head that controlled Seraphima did not realize the presence of other players. The carrier was wounded, so its consciousness was disabled. The technology for controlling NPCs through the data stream was still not stable. He realized that they were lucky, but the meeting would be soon. Seraphima changed her appearance to the main one. Sunlight was seeping through the clouds. Zhang held the essence. He was surprised to see Bu Huang. Zhang thanked him for saving him. Bu Huang could not believe that he was able to kill his boss. It was dark in the Tower of Eternity. The boss looked at the screen and asked the Apocalypse Elf to replay all the scenes of the fight. She agreed. He watched the replay. And he noticed the second player. There was something else interesting. He asked to zoom in on the right corner of the screen. He could see that the Divine Guild player had thrown Bu Huang to the 30th floor. The boss now knew who was really involved in his case. At the entrance to the Demon Tower, Qin Long stood pondering. It was closing in 3 hours. Qin was waiting for Zhang, who had been in the tower for too long. 3 minutes passed. Qin looked back at the teleporter. Ba Huang and Zhang Yi came out. Ba thanked him for looking after Han. Qin was glad to see the young master back. He told him that Han had been missing since the morning. Ba was sure that there was a reason for this. Zhang asked if she had been acting suspiciously before she disappeared. Qin scratched his head and thought. He remembered how she had stood alone in front of the statue in the square, seemingly praying. Zhang pondered his words and realized that it could have been a prayer quest. Zhang said that this was a task in the apocalypse that involved praying for 3 hours in the main square at 9 in the evening. And afterwards, there was a chance for a reward, the Dream Stone. Zhang said that this stone made no sense. Only if you watered it with the Dream Spring could you get a Dream Flower. Zhang knew where the spring was. Ba Huang was ready to follow her. They ended up at Meng Ling's villa in an extremely icy city. Zhang asked Qin to send him a message. He tried, but it was impossible. There was a defense in place to resist enemies from the apocalypse. Strange monsters would randomly appear on the villa. Players could not exchange messages. That's why Yarrow didn't respond to the villa. Zhang was sure that she was at the villa. The guys agreed not to leave separately. Han and the other players had a dream spirit. They were ready to fight. The player used the Fierce Grip skill. He grabbed the spirits that were running at them. Han was next. She raised her staff and summoned an ice storm. This skill released a storm of ice and snow to attack the enemy. The spirits were quickly drained of health. One of the players exclaimed that they were lucky to meet such a good mage as Han. The spirits fell to the ground. A dream flower grew from its body. The face of the spirit was bloodthirsty. One of the players did not have time to respond to the request not to touch the flower. But her fingers did touch the plant. The players were shocked. The spirit disappeared, and more flowers began to appear around them. One of the players said that after death, there is a chance of an elite blood flower monster appearing. And this chance came. His feet walked past the field of flowers. A woman who looked like Han asked the players to go home. They looked at her with their mouths open. The monster said that they probably didn't have a home. So she told them to stay here forever. The roots began to wrap around the players' bodies and lift them up. Some were puzzled by this resemblance to Han, but it was all explained by the additional skill of the elite blood monster. Dream transformation allowed you to copy the appearance, equipment, and skills of a player with the highest level. The girl asked for help from Han, who was thinking about how to get out. She took out a bright stone. Han threw it into the flowers. They immediately wilted. Han shouted out to everyone that they had to use light skills against the flowers. The girl shouted to attract attention. She used the sunshine skill, which caused rays and restored the health of the teammates by 500 health points. The players escaped from those roots. Arrows were flying in their direction. The players dodged, and all 3 arrows hit the monster. The crowd came for the flower. The monster regained its original form. The flash attracted the attention of other players, who also wanted a reward. The girl next to Han shouted at them not to touch the spirit they had summoned. Han whispered to her to leave them alone, so that they could spend their energy fighting the spirit. It was the Bloodgate Guild. They would drive the players away from the spirit and fight them. The trio stood aside and discussed that people from the biggest guild in the extremely icy city liked to pick on ordinary players. Han noticed that it could be people from the auction, so she covered herself with her robe. She suggested that they leave to avoid being targeted. One beastman from the guild looked at the trio trying to leave. He recognized Khan. There was an explosion near them. The beastman started asking Han where the other players from the auction were. She pretended that she didn't know or understand anything. The players from the Bloodgate Guild surrounded the 3. They were ready to pay the price. The guy tried to slip away, explaining that they would not interfere and would leave. Suddenly, he was kicked in the stomach. He fell to the ground. The girl came to him. Khan stood behind him, ready to attack. The beastman was furious with him. He picked up his weapon and began to attack, threatening to kill them all. Khan used her divine-level talent of summoning spirits. They held back the beastman's axe strike. The other players, running away, looked at what was happening and were shocked by the guild's cruelty. The spirits continued to hold back the attack. The spirits dispersed. Han ran at the beastman. She used the fireball skill. But the beastman interrupted the attack with his death judgment skill. Han flew away from the blow. Meanwhile, the players ran out of the villa gate. Zhang, Qin, and Ba were standing there, asking what had happened. After hearing what they said, Zhang realized what was going on. The guys ran to help. Han was being strangled. The beastman demanded that she call Zhang if she didn't want to die. The girl was not going to call him. The other beastmen mocked that such a beautiful girl would give her life for a boy, and that Zhang Yi was a coward who hid from people from the Blood Gate. Suddenly, blood began to flow from them, and their faces were no longer so happy. The axe flew in a whirlwind. A fist flew into the beastman's face. Zhang hit the beastman with all his strength. It flew away, and Zhang took Han in his arms. Han apologized for making him worry. Zhang told her to wait until he had dealt with the Bloodgate guys. The beastman smiled and wiped the blood from his face. He explained to Zhang that this was his guild's territory. He asked his teammates, who were lifting his arms, to grab Zhang. The crowd surrounded Han and Zhang. But the guys from the Bloodgate started to get beaten up. Bu Huang was angry that they were touching his sister. He and Qin attacked them. They were next to Zhang and Han and stood in defense. Zhang told them to take care of Han, who was badly injured, and asked them not to be provoked. The boys agreed. Han held a ring in her hands and said it could help him. It was a ring of death. Zhang put it on his index finger. He was ready to sacrifice them all for the ring he had been waiting for so long. Zhang began to run. He was crushing the guys from the bloodthirsty guild. He considered them just a bunch of mobs. With the ring of death, Zhang Yi absorbed the power of the killed players and increased their attributes by 100. The increase in attributes was mesmerizing, and with it, Zhang could not only not be afraid of Shui, but even a second-ranked berserker was no match for him. Shui gave the order to fire. Arrows flew at Zhang. He smiled and thanked Shui for enough arrows to activate the skill. The passive skill Hell Dragon Ruckus was activated. Every time he took damage, he had a 1% chance of summoning a Hell Dragon, which dealt 400% more damage to all enemies within range. The arrows hit his back. The dragon appeared. He began to burn the guys from the Bloodthirsty Guild. Shui couldn't believe that Zhang could become stronger in just a few days. The opponent used the skill of Bloodthirsty Revenge. He took a swing at Zhang, wanting to avenge his brothers. Suddenly, his axe stick broke. Shui's eyes shrank, he looked in different directions, and veins popped out on his forehead. Zhang held Shui at arm's length with his sword. Shui begged him not to kill him, because he would feel bad afterward, but Zhang was not afraid to kill him a second time. Zhang shouted that all the members of their guild were scum, and he would be doing everyone a favor if he killed him. Zhang's sword cut off Shui's head. He asked him to be a good person in his next life. The player Shui Wuheng was killed by Zhang Yi's player. He had no chance of revival, so he died. Qin said that they had dealt with the others. Now it's time to deal with the elite monster that gives a decent amount of rewards. Zhang asked Qin to wait, and told Yarrow to give the monster the honoroid she received for the prayer quest. Han put the stone in the monster's hands. The monster smiled, and asked the players to follow her. Zhang was told that he had obviously read the secret guide to the game, because he knew a lot. Qin was curious where the monster was leading them. Zhang said that she would lead them to the Dream Spring. They stood next to the spring. The monster was awakening a sleeping soul. The water began to sway. A girl appeared from it. She was one of the 10 gods of the apocalypse, corresponding to one of the 10 cards of divine talent. Her feet touched the spring. She said she had been waiting for a long time. Many years had passed. And as the first player, she was ready to give a special reward. This was the Dream Flower. Han Yarrow was happy to receive the Dream Flower. She had tears in her eyes, hugged the embarrassed Zhang, and said that Xiao He would finally be saved. Qin suggested that Bu, who pretended not to have seen Zhang's romantic moment with his sister, check the neighborhood for ambushes. Bu Huang agreed with his eyes closed. Zhang held the essence and the flower in his hand. Now he had to learn how to prepare the revival potion. He looked at the diary and recalled how Leia had synthesized it earlier. Zhang Yi successfully completed the concocting potion task and obtained the revival potion. A new sausage appeared in his hands. Zhang made a seal on the ground and summoned Xiao He. He gave his crippled beast a revival potion that would restore it. The dragon absorbed the potion and straightened its wings in a moment. Xiao He returned, and Han went to him and said that she had missed him very much. Everyone rejoiced at the return of the beast. The goddess of the apocalypse was watching them. She launched the hidden command task of Villa Minglin. Han looked frightened. The team didn't understand what was happening, but the goddess rose above the spring. Han began to smile. 1,000 years ago, ghosts invaded the continent of Apocalypse. Mingling's villa was the only place free from invasion under the protection of the formation. The 10 gods reunited to fight back and put a seal on the king of the ghost clan. The king said they were only delaying the inevitable. After the Great War, the whereabouts of the other 9 gods were lost, and the goddess fell into a long sleep. What the players had just seen was an illusion left by the goddess before she fell asleep. She had to wait for the chosen warrior to wake her up. Khan looked at the dream goddess with despair. The goddess disappeared before her eyes. Kamangda stared at the empty spring. The lost goddess of dreams, a legendary hidden quest. After the seal was placed on the Ghost King, the whereabouts of the 10 gods of the apocalypse remained unknown. They had to follow the clues to find the lost goddess of dreams. Zhang warned them that they had been moved to the location of the quest. Behind them, silhouettes could be seen in the forest. Zhang felt that someone was nearby and turned around. They were attacked by 2 beast-like monsters.